Hello, and welcome to today's web seminar, Move Beyond Traditional Mobile App Testing with AI and DevOps, sponsored by Pcloud and featuring one of the company's co-founders as our speaker, Avinash Tiwari. I'm your host and moderator, Beth Romanek. Thanks for joining us today. Before I hand it over to our speaker, let me explain the console you see in front of you. The three panels on your screen can all be moved around and resized. At the bottom of your console is a widget toolbar. By clicking the Handouts widget in the middle, the one that looks like a piece of paper, you can download a PDF of the speaker's slides. If you have any technical issues, please let us know by typing in the Questions and Answers panel to the left. This is also how you can ask questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. And finally, to optimize your bandwidth for the best viewing experience today, please close any unnecessary applications you may have running in the background. This web seminar is being recorded and it will be made available to watch on demand. When the recording is ready to watch, you'll get an email with instructions about how you can access the presentation. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our speaker, Avinash Tiwari.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks for setting it up. And good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of world you are in. It's a real pleasure to be part of a group of experts and a global audience. Thanks a lot for joining in. So let me begin with a quick intro about myself. My name is Avinash, and I am a co-founder of Pcloud.com, one of the fastest growing mobile app testing platforms right now. So with this quick, brief introduction, I hope you all are settled and ready to go. I'm excited to take you through the webinar today. I like solving problems of testing teams, and we created Pcloud.com with a goal to simplify lives, to be more precise, testing lives of app developers and testers. And in this journey, we have made some exciting progress, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So in that context, I'm going to focus on three key areas. The first, digital transformation and how it's impacting the world of mobile apps. The second one is focused around quality at speed, and what can we do to take it beyond what you have already seen. And lastly, what's the surprise with Pcloud and how Pcloud helps you take it beyond. And this is where I'm going to show you a small demo as well towards the end of the webinar. So over next 35 to 40 minutes, I'm going to cover these three topics, and towards the end of it, we'll take the Q&A. So please feel free to drop in as many questions as you can and share your opinions. So are we not living in an amazing time, technology-wise per se? The world around us is becoming all digital with limitless possibilities. Today, as a consumer, you can pre-order your coffee, at the same time interact with augmented reality in the store. And when it comes to the payment, you can skip the lines with alternative payment methods. To cut the story short, as a consumer, we have access to unlimited goods and services. And all this is happening because of the mobile technology which is around us. So mobile is becoming the center of all this change. It's the tool which is bridging the gap between digital and physical. And the proof is explosion of the app world. So in the first quarter of this year, Apple had close to 2 million apps on App Store. And around similar time, Android users were able to choose between 3.8 million apps. It's a clear indication that more and more businesses are adopting mobile apps as one of their primary channel for next business growth. And in fact, a lot of new businesses are either going mobile only or mobile first. And that's the reason of this explosion in the world of apps. So as a business, mobile apps are not just another channel. And more organizations are realizing that it can be a mean to create awesome customer experiences. And there are numerous examples around us. And one of the example, Starbucks, I'm sure you all are quite familiar with. The secret of Starbucks app success is the fact that it gives intuitive experience to the user. So it makes the store discovery very simple. You can order your coffee through the app and make the payment through the wallet app that they provide by just showing it across the barcode device that they have. And recently, Starbucks also has taken the mobile app experience to the next level by bringing in conversational ordering system powered by AI. So mobile is becoming all about customer experience. And it's not just about experience only. When it comes to mobile, it's all about speed. So how quickly you can make a change and let the customer experience it. So the mathematics of velocity matters a lot when it comes to mobile apps. And this demand for market speed has left companies with a complex problem. How do we go faster than ever before without losing an eye on quality? And there are quite a number of success stories like Facebook and Netflix. So the Facebook mobile app is updated and refreshed every 2 weeks like clockwork. And that's the new normal. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about this example in detail a little bit later in the webinar. But just to set the context about what speed means in the mobile apps. So I call this intersection of experience and speed as quality at speed. And it's a no-brainer for me to say that quality at speed can be achieved with two fundamental principles when it comes to software development practices. The first is agile, which I'm sure you all are aware of. It allows teams to work closely with business, and it pulls quality forward, as Forrester says it. And it's also called shift left of quality. So you're delivering small chunks to end customers on weekly or monthly basis. Unlike classical models where the releases were either end of a quarter or 6 months or a year. So this agile practice of dividing deliveries into chunks allows teams to get feedback early on from the customers. The second principle which brings speed is DevOps, and it's a shift left of operations. So DevOps practices basically allow you to deploy the software and the environment on which it runs automatically and on demand across the software delivery lifecycle. So you can truly have multiple deployments in a day. And a lot of organizations have already successfully implemented and achieved this state. So that's what is kind of speed market is looking at. When we talk about DevOps and continuing this DevOps discussion a little further, we all know that DevOps is enabled by two practices, continuous integration and continuous delivery. But will these practices work in sync if you don't have continuous testing process in place? So what you see here in this diagram are the three principles of DevOps working together like a gear. If any one of the gear fails or component within the gear fails, the system breaks down. So continuous testing becomes an extremely important part of overall DevOps journey. And that is what is of our interest when we talk about Pcloud as a product. And I'm sure you all are part of testing team or development team. making sure that the continuous testing practices are followed. So let's validate our thoughts through some independent studies and surveys. So here what you see is the data extracted from World Quality Report 2017-18, showcasing the popular and best practices followed in DevOps. And there are two highlights that I have done in the slide here. And if you look at the data closely, the first highlight clearly shows that 87% of CIOs and senior tech professionals are either using or planning to use a cloud-based test environment. And depending on the choice of organization, it could be a private or a public cloud or on-prem cloud, but it has become a must to achieve speed in the DevOps journey. And the second data point here, which is highlighted, is about continuous testing, which we were just talking about. And that also clearly shows that 80% of respondents have chosen this as a preferred DevOps practices. So in the context of testing, continuous testing and use of a cloud-based test environment are two key findings when it comes to implementing DevOps successfully. And we are going to kind of elaborate on both of these as we discuss further. So we validated this with some surveys and report, but what are some of the successful stories saying about it? And one of the big examples, or one of the most successful examples, come from the Facebook journey in terms of their product releases and the way they ship the product quite often. And they call it ship early and ship often approach. So with this approach, they have been able to update their web app multiple times in a day, while their mobile apps are updated at a frequency of almost 2 weeks. And they can do it because of the DevOps practices that they have adopted. And they adopted it quite early on in their product journey. And here I would like to emphasize about one of the key takeaway from this success story, especially for mobile teams. And the takeaway is about their massive investment in the device infrastructure. So every time their developers make a change, it gets tested on 2,000 real devices, which they have set up in their data center, like an on-prem cloud of devices. So with this approach, they have been able to bypass use of simulators and emulators, because real devices are the devices which are going to be used by end users. So why should someone test it on a simulator first and then do it on a real devices? But of course, it's difficult for every organization to have this massive infrastructure. But that's where companies like Pcloud or product like Pcloud comes into play. And this is also in sync with the survey report that we saw, the importance of cloud-based test environment, which came across prominently in the data. Moving on, at this point, we are quite sure about the role of DevOps in bringing speed to the delivery. But the question is mobile app DevOps different than the practices followed for other kind of application like web apps or other client server applications? So the answer is fundamentally no. The practices are almost same, but mobile DevOps definitely poses some unique challenges. And it's very important to understand those challenges before you start thinking about mobile DevOps. Some of the key ones I have highlighted here, and I'll talk about those briefly. The first one is the multi-platform support. So mobile apps do not have a single environmental target, right? Most mobile apps target multiple devices, multiple operating systems, which means dealing with device fragmentation. And this poses a challenge for ops team to create an optimal device infrastructure. And we saw that in the example of Facebook as well. they had to create a massive infrastructure to cover the end device target that their customer segment is going to use. And moreover, the device needs are ever changing. So that poses a unique challenge when it comes to mobile DevOps. The second challenge that I want to highlight here is around enterprise mobile apps, especially enterprise business to customer or business to employee. Typically, these kind of applications have very less business logic on the mobile device itself. Instead, these B2C or B2E mobile applications primarily serve as a front end to the enterprise applications already in use by the companies, like order management systems or HR systems or sales management systems. So this, I mean, what it means that mobile apps need to be developed and delivered in conjunction with the backend systems. So for DevOps, the challenge is to think holistically of all the application in the enterprise and coordinate their build and release processes and cycles. So the mobile team might not work in a silo as far as the enterprise mobile apps are concerned. And the third challenge is because of the way apps are distributed. And here it's termed as App Store. So the App Store adds an additional asynchronous step to the deployment process because developers are unable to deploy app updates on demand. So even for a critical bug fix, the developers will have to go through an App Store submission and review process. So continuous delivery becomes submit and wait. And the last challenge which I want to highlight here is around the build process of mobile applications. And this is a unique challenge, and again, it requires a massive investment in infrastructure. So it's linked again to the multi-platform support of applications, where you require several builds of the applications to be created each time the application goes through a change. So for example, for Android application, you need a APK. For iOS application, you need IPA. And again, for iOS applications, if you have to support multiple versions like 12.0 or the lower versions like 10.0 or 9.3, the Xcode versions change, and you require to build with those respective Xcode versions to generate the IPAs. So the build setup and configuration for each supported mobile environment is different from others. So you are most likely needed to create a small farm of build servers, which can be used by the development teams to seamlessly create their builds whenever there is a change. And it's a huge infrastructure issue. So either you need to think about creating it in-house, or there are cloud systems which can be used. So these are some of the key challenges which makes mobile DevOps quite unique. So at this stage, we have reached a point where we can look at a typical mobile DevOps cycle. So diagram that you are going to see now is a simpler diagram than what you are going to implement in reality, but it will give you a sense of what are the key components when it comes to mobile DevOps and how the process flows. So let's try to depict the mobile DevOps cycle through a diagram. So I have divided it into two different stages. However, in a DevOps term, there is nothing like stage, but for simplification, for simplicity of explaining, I have taken that liberty to term it into two different stages. So what you see here right now, I'm calling it dev stage. And in dev stage, the developers are, while developing the code, they require access of real devices or simulators to debug in real time. But the real process starts when they commit the code to a versioning system like GitHub. And that's where the continuous integration server triggers the build creation. And this is where the build server comes into play, which we were talking about. So these build servers either will be an internal build farm, or external system like Circle CI. And there are many other systems which can be used. As soon as the build is completed, automated unit tests are run, and typically these unit tests are either espresso scripts or X UI test scripts written mostly at the code level or to test the services or the APIs. Once the build is successful, it moves to the second stage. Again, the stage definition is mine, not a standard definition, which I'm calling it a QA stage. So if the unit test is passed, the automated functional regression tests are triggered. And that again has to be run on a real device infrastructure or emulator simulators, depending on the choice of the organization. And once those tests are passed, then if needed, manual app compatibility tests are done. And then the app either goes back to the developer, depending on whether bugs are present or not. And the same cycle continues. And if all the steps are passed, the app is pushed to either pre-prod or for App Store submission. So this kind of overall gives you a sense of what a mobile DevOps journey can be. And the yellow circle that you see here kind of highlights where you need a real device infrastructure. As an organization, we have seen a benefit of using real device infrastructure from the beginning itself. But a lot of organizations choose to work on emulators during the development stage, and they use real devices during the testing stage. But our recommendation is to use real devices as much as possible. But one key thing that you must have noticed is the different testing stages in this mobile DevOps journey, and this is what the continuous testing is all about. So every stage has a testing phase attached, and until the testing is passed, it cannot move to the next stage. So this is where a continuous testing phrase comes into play. And if you see this, the success of this seamless process depends on how much automation you have done. So it's all about automating the tests as much as possible to get the real benefit of DevOps and to really use continuous testing effectively. Great. So we have seen the journey so far. We talked about DevOps practices, use of continuous testing, and it's been quite a journey for organizations to move from classical testing to agile and then DevOps. But what next? Where is the future heading towards? The DevOps practices has already made already improved the speed of delivery, but can we speed it further is the question. And that is where AI comes into play. So here we are using a term called digital testing, where there are a lot more components coming into play as far as applications are concerned. So mobile apps are getting connected to external devices like wearables. Mobile apps in itself has AI components like chatbots. These have machine learning capabilities to predict customer behavior and then create workflows. So all these are making the system more complex and creating a demand of further speed into the development process. So that's where the digital testing comes into play. And we see that AI can play a big role in next stage of journey in terms of improving the speed of delivery. So this is what we are calling it going beyond continuous testing, where more and more use of AI-based system will be done in the testing phase. And what does it mean? There is an ongoing debate happening in terms of what AI can do, especially in the context of mobile app testing. and that is where our interest lies. And there has been a lot of, there are a lot of experts who are saying that AI has the ability to replace testing completely. I'm not an oracle, but I don't see this happening in near future. But we are certainly very excited about capabilities that AI present in front of us. And as an organization, when we started thinking about implementing AI within our platform, we thought on 3 different lines to solve some of the testing problems of mobile teams. And the first was, can it improve the speed of current testing process? So the question was around, can AI be used to create a personal assistant for testing? So we have been using personal assistant for our daily use like Siri or Alexa, but can we create a personal assistant for testing which can become buddy of mobile teams and then give them a power of AI to further increase their speed? The second aspect that we looked at was, can we generate meaningful data for users to make intelligent decisions? So something like, based on the historical data of bugs or logs, can we predict what kind of failure can happen with a new change in the application so that the testing can become more focused on the failure areas rather than going for full testing without intelligent decision? And the third aspect was, can it improve the test coverage and reduce cost? So there is a lot of focus right now on exploratory testing for mobile as well as web, because that is where a lot of these corner scenarios, crash scenarios are found out when the application goes into the market. So can AI be helpful in exploratory testing so that it increase the test coverage and find out those kind of corner issues before those issues are found out in the production? So these are the 3 different areas that we looked at, and we started integrating the AI capabilities in our platform. So the question is, are you really ready to adopt a personal assistant for testing? Are you ready to say, Certifier, can you help me test my app? That's the question I'm posing in front of all of you. Some of you might have used certain bots, but if you have not, are you ready to use these kind of systems? But before I talk more about Certifier, I think I would like to take a quick pause because it's the right time to take your opinion. We have talked about mobile, we have talked about DevOps, we have talked about use of AI. So it's important that we understand what exactly you have been using so far, and it will really help us as well in understanding the customer situations and their needs. So we can take a quick poll. It will take maybe 15 seconds for you to enter your options. So the poll is about what practices your test teams are using to keep pace with digital transformation, especially in the context of mobile app development and testing. And here the options are you already practicing continuous testing? How much of automation test runs are you doing? So do you have automation runs across for each build and code change? Are you already using cloud-based test environment? And the last one is, have you already started using AI-based platforms to increase your testing speed? So I can already see the responses coming in. So I'll just wait for a few more seconds before we move forward. But thanks a lot for participating in the poll. I can see as it's clear from our other surveys that we talked about, continuous testing definitely is one area where a lot of organizations have already adopted it. Automation and continuous testing is all about automation. So there are quite a number of responses around automation. However, cloud-based test environment, the result here is slightly surprising to me. I wanted to see, from my experience, it should be more, but very less on use of AI so far, and it's quite understandable. So I'm going to the next slide where the result is published here. So it's quite in line with what we have seen. So most of the organizations using DevOps have already implemented continuous testing, use of automation. However, as I said, cloud-based test environment usage is slightly less than expected here in the probably community that we're talking to here. And the AI is very less, but I'm sure what you see now is going to create interest for you, and you can start looking at it. Great. So we are all set to see what exactly Pcloud offers in terms of the DevOps and how AI is being used within Pcloud as a platform, and how it's helping customers use it effectively in their DevOps journey. But before that, for some of you who are not very familiar with Pcloud, just a quick introduction. It's an enterprise mobile app testing platform. In terms of key features, it provides real-time testing on real devices. So you can use it the way you use a physical device for testing. And the platform has one of the fastest speed when it comes to access of the real devices. It enables continuous testing. So starting from automation creation to execution on parallel devices, it enables organization to perform their continuous testing both at the unit test level as well as functional test level. And lastly, in terms of the key feature, AI-based testing. Our platform comes into multiple flavors. As mentioned in the slide here, one of the key flavor is public cloud, where we have more than 500 plus devices hosted on our cloud across various locations in the world. But a lot of enterprises are using private or on-prem cloud because of security reason or because of the scalability that they want to look at. So Facebook example that we talked about was an on-prem cloud, but they have developed it on their own. But we have the flavor where we can help you set up on-prem or a private cloud to help you achieve your mobile DevOps journey. So with that introduction, a quick snapshot of where does Pcloud fit into mobile DevOps journey. So this is the diagram that we saw earlier. And I'm going to highlight where exactly Pcloud fits in. So when developers are looking at real devices for debugging, we have a feature called Device Tunnel, which enables developers to access the real devices directly within their development environment. So it could be Xcode or Android Studio or Eclipse or tools like cross-platform development tools like Xamarin. They can access the device directly from within their ID and then do a real-time debugging. As part of Pcloud, we support execution of unit tests on real devices using tools like XCTest or Espresso. And we have one of the most exhaustive list of tools supported for automated functional tests. So Appium, Calabash, Robotium, and we have our own automation studio called Opkey, where you can create your scripts as well as execute the scripts. And as I said, the platform has extensive number of features to allow app compatibility testing on real devices. And the last one is synthetic monitoring on production. So that again can be used with Pcloud as a platform. So now we are all set to see things in action. Whatever we have talked about, I would like to quickly showcase what we have in our kitty and how it can improve your mobile DevOps journey. So I'm going to switch to my desktop screen sharing. So just give me a moment. Great. So I'm logging into our public cloud here. So I'm just using my credential to log in here. So while it logins, I'm going to quickly showcase you some key use cases before we move to the certifier part of it, where I want to showcase how certifier bot can help you and can become your buddy for testing. So I've logged into the public cloud platform here, and I'm going to the device tab, where you can actually see a host of devices which are available on our public cloud. But the same look and feel is there for a private cloud or on-prem setup as well. I'm not going into detail of the features. I just want to quickly show you one simple use case. So I'm connecting to a device which is Google Pixel, and it takes a couple of seconds to connect. So the device is connected here. I can access the device in real time. And if I just click on install here, I can quickly install an application. While the application is installed, I can take screenshots, any number of screenshots. If I have to log a bug based on the screenshot, I can just log it directly to Jira or a Slack. And at the same time, I can monitor logs in real time. I can monitor performance of the application in real time. So you can see here data like memory, CPU, network usage, battery usage getting plotted in real time. And there are several features with respect to app compatibility testing on a real device, things like geolocation, network simulation. I'm not going to get into that detail right now. So for the time being, I'll release this device. I just wanted to give you a sense of how the cloud looks and how it can be used for a quick use case of app compatibility. So I've just released the device. I talked about automation and how we are supporting one of the largest tool sets. So I talked about OpKey, which is our automation studio, using which you can create scripts and run it on devices in parallel. Apart from that, we support other tools like Monkey, Espresso, Calabash, Appium, and XUI Test as well. But let's go to the key part of our showcase, which I wanted to show today, which is Certifier, the bot I was talking about. So are you really ready to use bot as your buddy for testing? So this is what the Certifier interface looks like. And this is typically used, this interface is typically used by the QA teams along with the app compatibility test that they do. So it's a very simple interface where you just need to select your app, which is already uploaded on the cloud here. So I just selected a sample demo application, and I can provide a session name. And then I can provide certain test data if the application requires. So if it requires some user login credential, I can pass it. I can add more data sets if the application needs. However, the bot will add random data sets while it navigates to the application. So for example, if it needs mobile number, I can pass it on. And once I'm done with my test data configuration, I can just say run. And that's it. The bot will self-configure all the tests for this application. and start executing it on multiple devices in parallel. So I'm just going to show you a sample report here. I'm not going to wait for this test to get completed. So this is one of the report which has been generated through Certifier. So what you see here is a dashboard interface, and you can see some data points like rating for the application in terms of its CPU performance, its memory performance, its battery, network. And this is an average data based on all the devices on which the test has been executed. But you can look at device level data as well. So this test was executed on 10 devices in parallel. And you can see the bot has chosen different versions to give you optimal device coverage for this testing. The bot has its intelligence to pick the device coverage on its own. However, we are coming up with a feature where you can select your choice of devices as well. So you can see the data at the device level in terms of its performance, and then bot generates certain insights depending on the logs and the reports it analyzes. So that's at the dashboard level, but what will be interesting is to see slightly more detail. So there are two kind of tests which are done by bot. The first is the crash test, where it is like a smart monkey, where it generates random events across the application when it's navigating through the flow. So this crash test has been done on, you can see there are several devices on which this test has been done. And you can see the top level status of the different activities. So installation is passed, crash test is passed, uninstallation is passed. So in a very short period of time, you can do a crash test for your application. And then it generates extensive set of data around the performance while it's navigating through the application. And all this data is present here for users to analyze. And if there are any crash, so there is a crash here in this application, which has been captured in form of crash test.txt. This is the log for the crash, which has been captured here. But let's go and see one of the exploratory bot tests, where it tries to mimic the end user behavior. So again, the exploratory bot test has been run on multiple devices here. And as you can see, this also has similar format in terms of data capturing. So it captures all the data when the test was getting executed, like battery, memory, CPU, network, frame rendering, and then it generates all the snapshots. So this snapshot will give you a picture of what flow was executed by the bot. However, we are also trying to map it in terms of scenario, because right now you can go through the snapshots to see what flow was executed. And then again, you have the logs to analyze if you feel there is something wrong during the execution of the flow. So this is the way both crash test and exploratory bot test gets executed, and without any manual intervention, just schedule the run, and all the tests are self-configured and executed by bot. But the question is, how do we use it in a DevOps scenario? Can it be used by developers as soon as they do the code check-in? So while they run the unit test, which is more at the API or the service level, can they get a quick feedback on the functionality of the application as well? And that's where the bot test comes pretty handy. And that can be very easily achieved with Pcloud. So we have specifically developed a Jenkins plugin for our bot, which I'm going to demonstrate here. So what you see here is the Jenkins interface, where we have already created a project. The project name is Android Build Test Pcloud. And if I just show you what's the configuration of this project, it will give you a clear idea as to how it works. So I clicked on configuration here, and as you can see, we are picking up the we are picking up, we are providing the repository URL here with the credentials, so that as soon as the developer checks in, the code will be picked up from that repository. And you can also specify which branch to use. Of course, a simple application, so there is only one branch, but you can add multiple branches depending on your application configuration. And here, since it's an Android application, we are using a build server called Gradle. But you can choose to use other build servers as well. That's provided by Jenkins itself. So we just provided the wrapper location and the task name. And this is where the Pcloud certifier configuration comes into play. So you have to provide your username and API key, followed by the CLI and the app path. And the CLI here is a simple jar utility, which will execute the bot test depending on the configuration which has been provided here. And the app path is the Jenkins workspace path, where the build will be storing the application once the build is completed. And here we have also integrated with Slack, so that the result can be posted into Slack channels, or it can be done with Jira as well. So once this configuration is complete, the certifier bot will be executed as soon as any code change is done. And right now we have been able to provide the result within 10 minutes of execution, which we are trying to optimize further. But within 10 minutes, you can get a result on exhaustive set of devices. It could be 10, it could be 15 or 20. So here we are executing the build manually, but in a real situation, the build will be triggered automatically. And you can go to console output and start seeing the result of the execution. So you can see here first, it's trying to build the application from the Git repository. And once that is done, it starts executing the certifier session. So you can see here the message, you have successfully scheduled the certifier session. And once that is done, once that is completed, it will take some time. The report is also posted back in the console. So this report link is public, which can be passed to anyone. So you don't need to have a credential to access the login, and you can configure the URL to be made public. So there is security in place. And as you can see, the URL has been posted to Slack as well within the channel that you wanted to be posted. So as soon as your certifier build is complete, the report will be available both in form of email notification as well as Slack or Jira, or within the Jenkins console as well. So within a very short period of time, and this is the same report that I showed you earlier as part of the manual certifier session, where you'll get a dashboard where you can compare the performance of the application along with the functionality across crash and exploratory bot test. So we have seen a lot of organizations started using it during their QA stages as well as within their development stages, because one of the key challenges that we have seen is developers do not have a view of how the functionality of the application is when they make a change. The unit tests does not give them full picture of what the functionality of the application is. So while certifier can give them a sense of whether at the functional level the application was passed, was there any crash, and information like that. So with this, I would end the demo and go back to the slide just to conclude. So just wanted to end before we open it for question and answer. So we talked about a digital age, which is forcing us to test smarter, and continuous testing is definitely the first step. And it came across the survey also that most of you are already following the continuous testing practices. But effective use of AI can definitely take it to the next level. And AI has to be treated as augmentation of the capability, and it can really help capabilities of the existing team, and they can take more intelligent decisions. And the last part is Pcloud has been at the forefront of innovation when it comes to mobile app testing, and we are committed to keep you ahead in the market. So with these thoughts, I would end the session. Thanks a lot for joining in and listening. I can see a lot of questions. So we are open to Q&A, and feel free to drop in all the questions. And you can always reach out to me on these email IDs which are mentioned if you need any more information around product or any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Avinash. So as he said, we've already got some great questions here, but feel free to continue asking questions and we'll get through as many as we have time for. Okay, so first question for you from the audience. How does Certifia know if an error occurs, and how does it recover after that?
Yeah, so it has the, I can't reveal the algorithm in detail, but it has the capability to analyze certain errors, and then it starts the flow from where the error was done. So it ends the flow there, and then it starts from the next flow that it has detected. So it first detects all the flow which are possible in the application, and then goes through each of the flows sequentially. And if there is an error within the flow, that flow is stopped and the next flow is executed. And if the error is because of certain crashes, it captures the crash, which is then reported back to the user in form of the crash test. But if the error is more functional in nature, you will see that in the snapshots where you will have to analyze why that error occurred. In future, we are trying to figure out, can Certifia itself point out why that error happened? But right now, the user, based on the screenshots and the workflow which was executed, will have to analyze if that's a functional error or it's because of a crash and things like that.
Okay, thanks for that extra information about Certifia. This person wants to know, can you inject dynamic parameter values from other test streams?
So right now, no. So as you saw, either we can provide the test data while we are configuring the test execution. So however, it can be configured in form of certain files or a JSON object. But if by another test stream means through some other tools, not right now. It has to be within the Certifia system and within the configuration files that we provide right now. But that's a good point if it can be linked to some maybe external DBs or external systems.
Okay, good to know. Thanks. This person says, continuous testing is all about automation. Do you have any data points on the industry average of the percentage of testing that can be automated?
Good question. So what we have seen from our experience, and it varies from application to application, what we have seen from our experience is a lot of mature organizations have been able to automate almost 60 to 70%. And those organizations are following a practice called automation pyramid. So the reliance on functional automation tests, UI-driven functional automation tests are less, because those are more brittle in nature, and especially on mobile apps, the chances of these kind of tests getting failed on different devices is very high. So they follow an approach where they maximize the unit level testing, then API level testing, and then UI-driven functional tests. So combining all three, they have been able to achieve almost 60 to 70% of the test coverage. And as the tools are maturing more to mimic the real life situations, the percentages will increase for sure. And again, use of AI systems will further increase it. So at right now, I can say 60-70% is what we see as an industry average.
Okay, great, thanks. This is a popular question, I think, among testers. This person says, why would you think that AI wouldn't replace QA resources?
So yeah, I mean, this has been interesting debate, a lot of different viewpoints. But what we feel is, end of the day, AI also has to be trained. So for example, we still need to provide test data to the system. And when the reports are generated, though AI is going to analyze and provide report on its own, but someone has to really analyze whether that's a bug, issue, localize the bug, and then report it. So I think the need of QA is still going to be there. However, I think the QA teams have to really skill themselves, because as you saw, it generates so much of data, and unless you really understand what the data means, so you have to really go deep into how application works. For example, if there is a CPU spike, why that is happening. So those kind of skill improvements are definitely required. But I mean, the QA has to be there. I mean, a lot of organizations are merging dev and QA together. That's definitely happening. But the testing will exist, but it will become more tool-based, where the teams will drive the tools, analyze the results, and then take smart decisions.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think that's a great place to end too. So that will end our web seminar for today. I'd like to thank Avinash Tiwari for his time and Pcloudy for sponsoring this web seminar. And of course, a special thank you goes out to all of you in the audience who spent this hour with us today. So everybody have a great day, and we hope to see you at a future event.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending this seminar.